storyteller, and I've come today to share the stories that bind us, to share of the stories that connect us, and to share of the stories that set us free. What is Juneteenth? Once called the Day of Jubilee, others called it Emancipation Day. But today, across America, we all call it Juneteenth. Juneteenth is a joyous holiday. It's the day that we celebrate the end of slavery in America. But where did the name come from? It came from June 19, 1865. That was the day that slavery ended in America. Now, I have to tell you, when I was a little girl, they told me it was called Juneteenth because we really didn't know what day slavery actually ended. We knew it was a teenth, and we knew it happened in June, so hence Juneteenth. Now, but what was it about that day? What are the details of Juneteenth Day? I will tell you, but have you ever been the last person to know a secret? I will tell you about it, and I'll tell you about that day. But first, we have to go back to the beginning. The Civil War was a fight between the North and the South over the issue of slavery. Now, the North and South were fighting, and they were fighting and fighting because 11 states from the South left the Union of the United States. Now, after a while, a battle took place, and the North finally seemed to be winning the war. President Abraham Lincoln wanted to make sure that the North won, so he announced and released the Emancipation Proclamation, New Year's Day, 1863. Well, what happened then? It made all slaves free in this country. All slaves in the South immediately became free. But what he did not end the war. Oh no. Immediately, 200,000 former slaves left their lives of shackles and joined the United States Army to fight for freedom, to liberate the South. Now, you would think at that time the war would have ended, but it didn't, because Texas was so far removed from the fighting, they never were told that slavery had ended. The war went on for 2 whole years and ended April 1865. At that point, the North controlled all the South. They sent General Gordon Granger to Texas to take control. When he got to Texas, he looked around and realized that they had never told the slaves that they were free. He called an announcement and he declared to everyone there, "The war is over. The people of Texas are now informed that in accordance with the Emancipation Proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free." You clap, but that was 900 days after the Emancipation Proclamation. That was 89 years after the Independence Day. And that was 339 years after they took the first Africans in shackles and brought them to America. But the secret was out. All people were free. Now you know the events of the day. I want to go back. We need to understand what happened at first. So this next story is the story of my ancestors being taken from Africa in chains and brought to America. The place of my people is the country of Ghana on the continent of Africa. The kente cloth is the cloth of the Ashanti people from Ghana, West Africa. We brought our stories with us. We tell them from individual to individual, from generation to generation. Ever since I was a little girl, I was told of the place of my people. I was told my ancestors ancestors were kings and queens in Africa. They were royalty. My ancestor, the chief, the king, had a son that was a prince. One day, my tribe went to war with the other tribes. Not only the great prince went to war, but members of the royal family and tribe as well. When my tribe lost the war, that other tribe captured the prince, captured members of the royal family and my tribe, and they sold us into slavery in America in the 1800s. Now, my grandfather's great aunt Joe Kizzy was 12 years old when she was taken captive. She remembered the large white clouds that went on for days and days. Those were actually the sails of the slave ship that she remembered. But Aunt Joe Kizzy wasn't alone on that ship. My great-great-grandfather Zachary was also on that ship. He had been a prince and now he was a slave. That slave ship came into South Carolina. Now you may doubt my story, but we documented and we found the actual city in South Carolina that we came to. We've also taken all of those popular DNA tests, and of course it proved what our family story said. We were taken from Ghana. Only back then they called it the Gold Coast. Now, when we got to South Carolina, a slave broker named John Calhoun bought my family and sold them to a plantation in Colfax, Louisiana. Zachary was now made to work in a blacksmith shop, but he never forgot about the place of his people. Every chance he would get, he would take a little metal and hide it away. He would take a little metal and hide it away, dreaming of getting back to the place of his people. One day he found he was in the shop all by himself. He gathered that metal and he hammered and hammered and hammered and made a crude knife. He would get back to his people. He opened the door and the coast was clear. He began to run. After a time, the slave owner knew he was missing. They got those dogs. They sniffed his scent and began to chase him. He ran and ran until he got to a river that he could not cross without a boat. He heard the dogs barking. He looked up in the sky and said, "If I shall die tonight, I will die like a man." They tried to hunt me, but now I will hunt them. As those dogs came snarling and barking, he snatched up the first dog and put the knife to his throat. The master said, "Zachary, Zachary, please don't kill my dog. That's my best hunting dog. You better call him off. Then you better call him off." I wish I could tell you that Zachary made it back to the place of his people that day, but he did not. What I can tell you is that his spirit and his blood flow through my veins today. I can tell you that as a child, because they told me those stories over and over, I had a burning desire to go back to Ghana, West Africa. It took 150 years, but I made the journey that Zachary could not. I walked through a field, I closed my eyes, and I returned the spirit of Zachary back to the place of his people, the place of my people, the place of our people. I'd like to give 2 volunteers. If I could get a little boy and a little girl, that would be great, yes. You hold this? Yep, and face the crowd. You come over here. You stay right here. Our next story that we've heard about Juneteenth, the story of that day. And we've also heard about what it was like to be taken. But now we're going to find out what was happening in the North. Our story is told from the perspective of Queenie the quilter. Now one day, Queenie the Quilter, she was known for walking to her freedom from Virginia to the north, all right? Hello, everybody. My name is Queenie the Quilter, and I am known for getting to freedom by following secret codes that my grandmother made in this quilt. As I walked toward the north to try to escape slavery, I came across some Quakers. They gave me food and water. They helped me read signs on churches and houses of people that would help me along the way. When I got to the north, I met up with abolitionists. I learned that abolitionists were white people that were anti-slavery, and they fought hard. Now, once I got to the north, I met Henry Box Brown. Henry had mailed himself from Richmond, Virginia, all the way to Pennsylvania. Turn to the right. Just like that. Now, the abolitionists also helped Henry get on his feet, find work, and Henry was the one that told Queenie about all the things that the abolitionists did. They actually wrote articles and started groups. The year after Independence Day, the state of Vermont was the first state in the Union to vote that slavery was outlawed. Blacks and whites found the hypocrisy sickening that you could fight for Independence Day, but yet keep men, women, and children in bondage. Now, I want to interview our special guest today. Queenie, can you please hold up that quilt and show them all the stitching? It's very old and it's coming loose. Good job, Queenie. Now, Box Brown, I understand that you were in this box for 27 hours. Is that right?
Yes.
All right, and then I understand if you turn it around, it says, turn around. It says this side up, but somebody came and turned your box upside down, and you were on your head for 7 hours. Now, I heard that you had a worst headache ever. Is that true? Oh, my goodness. Well, we want to give a hand clap for our volunteers, Henry Box Brown and Queenie Kilt. Thank you. Thank you. Now, we've heard about the North. We've heard about getting free at Juneteenth. But this last story is about what it was like the day that we found out we were free in Galveston, Texas. It's told by Narcisse. Oh, freedom, oh, freedom, oh, freedom over me. Hi, my name is Narcisse, and I was born on the old McNeely plantation in Galveston, Texas. My mother's name was Mary Jane, and she was taken from Ghana, West Africa. My father, oh, we're not allowed to talk about who my father was, but you could probably look at me and tell who he was, okay? Now, slavery was hard on all of us. We picked cotton and potatoes and other crops from early in the morning till late at night. They would blow the horn, oh, and we better get out there to that field or they would beat us. They had an old mule. They brought that mule out once a day and gave us water, but it was always dirty, nasty, and stale, okay? Now, when I got to be 18, I fell in love with a man named John. We went before Master and asked him to marry us. And just like you've seen on TV, they put that broom in front of us. I held John's hand and we jumped the broom and we were married. But it wasn't no honeymoon. They sent us right there out to that field to keep working. Now, I was 18 years old when I got married, and I had my first baby. He was a boy. His name was Moses. But just like the Moses in the Bible, I wasn't allowed to keep my baby. They snatched my baby from my bosom and sold him far away in slavery. And I never saw him again. Now, slavery was so hard. The older people prayed for it to end, but it seemed like it just never would. One day in June, we were working in the fields, and all of a sudden, we saw these men on horseback riding up. We didn't know who they were. This big man got down from his horse. He gathered us together. We later learned his name was General Gordon Granger. He announced, "The war is over. People of Texas are now informed that according to the Emancipation Proclamation from the United States Executive, all slaves are free." Who was this man? Who gave him authority to say these things? But some old Africans started shouting, "We're free, we're free!" Well, that's when pandemonium broke out. Old master came running down from the house and said, "Get back to work, I'll beat you dead." And General Granger put his finger in his face and said that proclamation one more time. Men grabbed the slave garments from their back and threw them to the ground. Ever so slowly, I heard someone say, an old Negro spiritual, "Oh freedom, oh freedom, oh freedom over me. Before I be a slave again, I'll be dead in my grave." Now they'll be singing. Now they'll be dancing. Now there'll be stories. Oh freedom, oh freedom, oh freedom over me. We celebrate today. We are here to celebrate Juneteenth, freedom for all people. Juneteenth has been celebrated not just in 2021. Juneteenth has been celebrated every year in this country for the last 156 years. Juneteenth is not just an African American holiday. It is a holiday and a celebration for all people. Why? Because it reinforces what the founding fathers put forth, that all are created equal. As I go, I'm Auntie Renee, the storyteller. It has been my heart's desire and pleasure to share these stories with you. Happy Juneteenth!